Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Almassian. I apologize for playing this 5 minutes video at the beginning because it seems that YouTube has now a new algorithm and they can read and listen to what you say and what I say during the first few minutes. And if you mention any of the words that you shouldn't mention because they want to suppress the content, the video is being demonetized and suppressed. At the first few minutes before they demonetize the video and suppress it, I'm receiving at least 3,000-4,000 views in the first 1 to 2 hours. And then when they demonetize it and suppress it, I'm not receiving above these few thousands, but probably I'm receiving few more hundreds. So that's why I have played it. So let's see how this video will function with the YouTube's algorithm. If they still suppress and demonetize the videos, I will go to Rumble. From tomorrow on, I will completely do my live streamings on Rumble. So I already pinned my Rumble account in the chat, guys, and also it's in the description below. I would really appreciate it if when this live streaming is over, you could also follow me there, because if this video is still suppressed and not enough people are watching, I will start doing my live streamings on Rumble. So let's put this aside. What's happening in Palestine, Israel? First of all, I would like to say that in my entire life, I'm 36 years old. I have witnessed lots of wars in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Libya. I have never seen as much injustice as I am seeing today. My entire life, I haven't seen injustice in this amount. It's incredibly um, heartbreaking how they are dehumanizing and mistreating the Palestinians as if they are nothing but flies. In the past video, I said it seems that according to the civilized world and under the rules-based order, the flies have more rights and more respect than the Palestinians, which is heartbreaking, and their blood is not even considered worthy of any condemnation or outcry, or at least try to tell the Israeli side to respect international law. Now, the ground offensive that the Israeli side was speaking about in the past few days, it seems that we are reaching to the 0 hour. It seems that the ground offensive will start this night while probably we're doing this live streaming, guys. So it's very close. And you have to know the conditions in the Gaza Strip. There is no electricity, there is no water, and now the Mossad declared that they're going to also block the internet in the Gaza Strip. Please answer to me, why do they want to block the internet, for example? Because very simply, they want for the people, for the general public, not to see what are they going to do there. After all this 1 week to dehumanization of the Palestinians, I believe they're going there to completely annihilate the Palestinians and occupy the Gaza Strip. This is the goal. And we can see nowadays how they are already bombing, carpet bombing the city, complete disregard to any civilian casualties. In fact, they are deliberately even targeting civilians while they are fleeing their homes to the southern side of Gaza Strip. And I will come back to that later. So there is a coordinated attempt from the Israeli side to block all this information and pictures coming from the Gaza Strip, but also it seems there's a coordinated attempt by YouTube, by Facebook, by many um, social media outlets to suppress the voices who are trying to show the other side of the story in Palestine and Israel. And this is happening to all my friends. Facebook posts are all being deleted and their accounts are restricted and blocked because of this. Therefore, I'm not able to post anything, for example, on Facebook. I'm only posting on X, Twitter, and very carefully, and I'm doing live stream here and also posting at the same time the live stream on Rumble. Now, they want to keep the people blind, right? And we, as the people of the world, we are faced with two options now, especially the people in the Middle East. The ground offensive which, if it succeeds and they completely crush the Palestinian presence in the Gaza Strip and they force the Palestinians to the Sinai, which is the plan. And this is the title of today's video. And today we will see how an Israeli official confesses on Al Jazeera that this is the plan, to force the Palestinians to go to Sinai to find them a new home in Egypt, right? But if other regional powers, namely Iran, Hezbollah, and Syria, want to intervene and stop this massacre and stop this ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, then we are faced with regional war. So we have two options now. One, if you have the third option, please let me know, guys, in the chat. I'm reading. It's either the Israelis succeed in ethnically cleansing the Palestinians and crush everything in the Gaza Strip and force the Palestinians to go to Egypt according to the plan, or the regional countries will intervene, or other regional players will intervene, such as Hezbollah and such as Syria, such as Iran. And in this case, it's regional war. So in my opinion, both of these examples are horrible. And because nobody is calling for self-restraint, negotiations, peace agreement, telling Israelis to withdraw to their internationally recognized borders, to give the Palestinians a state. No, the so-called international community, the so-called civilized world, are all on the side of Israel, unequivocally. And they're not even asking Israel to tone down, to try to respect international law, etc., etc. So all masks are off. So if you thought there is international law, there is international community, and there is a civilized world, I think it's quite clear right now that we are living in a jungle. So for the ground offensive, there is the phase that comes before the ground offensive, right? And now the Israeli president, Ishaq Herzog, he says all Palestinians are collectively responsible for attacks on Israel. I quote, "It is an entire nation out there that is responsible. It is not true, this rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved." So this is Ishaq, the president of Israel. Okay, I apologize that I have to find now sometimes this software, it doesn't show. Yeah, this is it. So this is a very big Twitter account with 360,000. He says, "Genocide alert. Israeli President Ishaq Herzog says the quiet part out loud. He claims Israel are operating under international law because the entire nation of Palestine is responsible. This rhetoric that civilians are not aware, not informed, it's absolutely not true. They could have risen up, they could have fought against that evil regime." And holy tweet, Israel is comfortable slaughtering civilians because they, quite literally, according to their president, view the Palestinian civilians as military combatants who are also responsible for the Hamas attacks. Israel says Palestinian civilians do not exist. Let me say that again. The Israeli president just blamed 5 million civilians, half of which are children, for the Hamas attacks, and feels it's their fault and they are worthy to be exterminated. So, this is him. Check.
We are operating militarily according to rules of international law, period. Unequivocally. It's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true. This rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved, it's absolutely not true. They could have risen up, they could have fought against that evil regime which took over Gaza in a coup d'etat. But we're at war. We are at war. We're at war we are defending our homes. We're protecting our homes. That's the truth. And then when a nation protects its home, it fights. And we will fight until we'll break their backbone.
Guys, this rhetoric is very, very scary, to be honest with you. Look, I have seen some politicians, and I know many politicians are warmongers, and if they had enough power, they would expand, they would commit massacres and atrocities, right? But I have never seen politicians belonging to any country or leaders belonging to any country who speak openly about how they dehumanize the other side and how they consider the civilians as combatants, because he clearly says that all the Palestinians are responsible for the Hamas attacks. And not only in the Gaza Strip now, they also mention the West Bank, right? So, in my opinion, if the Israelis succeed to obliterate and crush the armed groups in the Gaza Strip and occupy it completely, the next thing is coming to the West Bank. If the people in Palestinians in the West Bank think they will be spared of any sort of violence or any sort of attempt to push them away and drive them away, no, it will happen. They will force the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip to the Sinai, and the West Palestinians of the West Bank, they will force them to go to Jordan. This is the plan. Okay. And this is the oh my god, man, this picture is so disgusting on so many levels. And this is Ursula von der Leyen, and this is also the president of, I don't know, again, one of the European commissions in the EU. And they're like, this is Ishaq Herzog, the same president who just said all Palestinians are combatants and they're going to target them all without indiscriminately, right? Without any reservations. And they're holding his hands. Look at these warmongering faces. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. I could vomit on this photo. This is von der Leyen holding hands with the Israeli president who said the entire population of Gaza was responsible for Hamas's acts. She's unelected. She had no mandate from the EU's states to go to Israel. She never once called for restraint or respect for international law. Like, this is so true, because I'm old enough to remember, guys, when the EU was still at least pretending or trying to play an independent role. Try to say, oh, I'm in the middle, like probably the United States is more biased against the Palestinians or against the Arabs. Look, I'm the European Union. I can play a mediator role. I couldn't fix this and that. Now it's entire EU under this von der Leyen. They're just, you can't even recognize the difference now between the EU foreign policy and the Washington foreign policy. It's like there is a script coming from Washington and they just send it to the Brussels office, and these women and all these bureaucrats in the EU who are actually unelected, they just parrot and follow the American rhetoric and American narrative. It's so sad to see that Europe is lost. And bear in mind, guys, because of this, there will be backlash against the Europeans as well. Previously, if you went to the Middle East, everybody who were mad of the US foreign policy because they destroyed many nations in the Middle East and killed millions of them, right? They used to say death to America. Why? Because they were unhappy with the foreign policy of the United States, that they keep dropping bombs over their heads, right? This hatred and violence, or the intention to respond to the violence of the Americans in the Middle East, was strictly exclusive to the Americans. But now, because of this European policy under von der Leyen and others, people cannot distinguish now between the European policy and the American policy, and they will pay a price later for that. I'm just saying the facts out loud. And I believe that if you guys are from the European Union, if you're from Europe, probably you could agree with me and you could know that, or probably you agree with me and say, like, you have to change the policy here. It's unbearable for the people in the region to see how the European Union is embedded with the Washington foreign policy, which is killing them. As we speak now, probably while I'm saying this word, 10 more Palestinians died, right? And this is the hypocrisy of the von der Leyen. And this is the video that they just made for von der Leyen when she spoke about, this was in 2022. She was condemning the Russian offensive on Ukraine. And she was saying, like, cutting electricity and the infrastructure, you cannot bomb civilian infrastructure, etc., etc. This is a terror. And now Israelis are doing exactly the same thing that she accused the Russians of doing it in Ukraine, right? With complete, like a poker face. Like, I'm sure if she sees this video, don't be fooled and don't think that she would feel ashamed. She's shameless. The Israeli army is wiping Gaza off the face of the earth, blocking the supply of water and killing hundreds of civilians daily. But No high-ranking European official seems to care about it. Even the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, who has made dozens of loud statements on the humanitarian situation in Ukraine, this time prefers to ignore what is happening. European officials protect civilians only when they suffer on the right side, the one supported by the West. As long as the war to the last Ukrainian man remains a priority in European politics, the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza is nothing for them to worry about. Check.
Targeted attacks on civilian infrastructure with a clear aim to cut off men, women, children of water, electricity, and heating, with the winter coming, these are acts of pure terror, and we have to call it as such. This is a moment to stay the course, and we will back Ukraine for as long as it takes.
So, according to her statements, Israel is also unleashing a terror on the Palestinians, right? Targeting civilian infrastructure, even targeted the hospital today. Imagine they called the hospital or dropped flyers over the hospital and said, guys, you have to evacuate the hospital in 2 hours because we're going to bomb it. What's the purpose of bombing a hospital? Can somebody please tell me why do they like and then European or Western officials come and say, but Israelis gave a notice for the people to evacuate. Okay, but why? Why do they bomb a hospital? What's the value? What's the military value of the hospital? Why are you bombing a hospital? Like you think if you ask them to evacuate and then bomb it, it's not crime? Like the international law is quite clear. It's disgusting. And you see these politicians on TV justifying it. I feel my stomach. It hurts me. It hurts me. This is just unspeakable atrocities, really. This is from the Financial Times today. Western diplomats are walking an impossible tightrope with Israel, he says. So this is another claim that some of the European officials are unhappy with the Israeli policy. And as I told you, they think that the Europeans will pay a price for it. This is the author. He seems like he's a Jewish Israeli, Gideon Rachman. In Brussels, there is more nervousness about the fact that von der Leyen has arrived in Israel just as the country's government is urging more than 1 million Gazans to leave the north of the Strip. The concern is that the European Commission president could look as if she is endorsing military actions that will cause mass civilian casualties and that will swiftly be labeled as war crimes. We may be about to see massive ethnic cleansing, says one EU diplomat. So it's not me, guys, who's saying this. European diplomat telling the Financial Times that we may be about to see massive ethnic cleansing. Another senior Brussels official says that the EU should already have lined up with the UN Secretary General's calls for Israel to respect international humanitarian law. Quote, our fear is that we will pay a heavy price in the global south because of this conflict, says one EU official. Just exactly what I told you guys. Why this European Union leader, this commission leader, is generating hatred in the global south against the Europeans? Do they want to cause because guys, there are millions of refugees and migrants here from the Middle East or the global southern countries. It gives me the impression like there is a conspiracy from these officials to cause any sort of destabilization here in Europe, because the Palestinians, people from the Arabic countries, they're also demonstrating and protesting, right? In France, in Germany, in many capitals in Europe, and the police is also beating them very harshly. So what's the plan here? If this, definitely this policy is going to cause harsh sentiments toward the European Union and European countries, and you have all these millions of people from the global south here already as migrants or refugees, and then they want to defend what they believe is right in Palestine, and then you send the police with brutal force against them. So what's the plan here? I'm asking question here. Do they want to cause a clash with this community? I don't know. But this EU official is correct. Our fear is that we will pay a heavy price in the global south because of this conflict. He's correct. But there is very little confidence in Western capitals that Israel will listen to calls of restraint. They think they are facing a second potential Holocaust and fighting for the survival of the state, says the EU official. They are not going to listen to us. European diplomats have also been struck by how little interest the Israeli government has shown in prioritizing the lives of the hostages held in Gaza, some of whom come from European countries, because the Europeans are, and the Americans are also asking what's the fate of the hostages, right? Because this most of the Israelis hold double nationality or double passports, and they're being held hostage in Gaza, and Hamas wants to exchange them with Palestinian prisoners. But the Israelis are bombing a lot that even they killed some of the prisoners who were held in the Gaza Strip. And now the Europeans are shocked and surprised that Israel doesn't give a two damn about the hostages. So this also raises the question, was the goal probably to sacrifice Israelis and the Jewish people and also some of the European and American people so that they create this situation? Because remember, in our first two episodes, we discussed the two theories that whether this was planned in the way that the Israelis were watching what Hamas is preparing and they allowed them to do what they had done so that they create an environment and open the appetite for war, so they shape the public opinion, or they were surprised, right? They were caught off guard. So up until this moment, we are discussing both theories. But what if the first theory is correct or the conspiracy theory is correct? And this is, for example, again, they are discussing this, two Israelis discussing this. Quote, the people of Israel have been, I don't know if sacrifice is too rough of a word, but we have been sold out. This is the former IDF soldier that I played her video, I think, in the second live streaming after this conflict started. And she served in the military, in the intelligence 25 years ago. So Israeli journalist Efrat Fenixon, who served in Israel's intelligence forces, raised serious doubts about the government's surprise attack narrative. No military involvement, no police, no arms underground for hours and hours. This is something that is non-typical and unusual for Israel Defense Forces. I will show you now the video, but why I'm referring to this video, because what if they don't care about the hostages now because they have a bigger plan, a grand plan, which is ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians? What if they don't care? Like, okay, what if 100 hostages or 200 hostages died for the sake of the bigger plan, right? I think they would do it. I think they would do it.
What could possibly explain such a failure? Incompetence seems inadequate to explain it. Now, you're in a position to say more about this because you have manned that border.
Yeah. It's very hard for me to talk about it because it's there are so many friends and family members of friends that are missing and have been taken hostage in this barbaric acts, that talking about what I know sometimes feels like, why is this important now? And at the same time, I know that if we don't talk about this, then we will just let them off the hook once again. Because to me, and I will explain why I think this is a great atrocity. Because to me, it's I don't know how to say it. It's just the people of Israel have been, I don't know if sacrifice is too rough of a word, but we have been sold and sold out completely, and no help for hours and hours, and no military involvement, no police, no arms on the ground for hours and hours. This is something that is non-typical and unusual for Israel Defense Forces. Now, I've served in the military forces 25 years ago as I was in the intelligence forces based in the Gaza Strip, as I told you. And I know the security drills when I served, there was no internet. So I would sit next to the phone in my shift of the fence of the security of the Gaza Strip. And whenever something would move alongside the fence, I would get a phone call from the human observers that are looking at the gate, telling us there is a chain of command that you have to notify when something like this happens. And then straight away, forces come in to look at what is it and take it down.
So what do you mean when something moves by the fence? How small is something?
It can be a pig. It can be a cat moving alongside the fence or touching the fence or trying to cross the fence. An animal, they would identify it. They would see it.
So a cat gets scrutiny.
Would trigger. Yeah, it could trigger the fence. Yeah,
and
an animal.
25 years later, with
25 years
sensors,
later, with internet and with the most sophisticated high-tech weaponry systems, and there are drones and there are helicopters and there are troopers on the ground, and there are many things that are supposed to be activated. There are various lines of defense and layers of defense that are supposed to be activated when something like that happens.
Okay, so I just want to make this clear. I mean, it probably is, but you have a system that is sensitive to anything the size of a cat or bigger. That system, since you were manning it, has had 25 years to mature and become more sensitive, to become more discerning. And yet, how many places was that border breached?
15.
15 places
If not more,
simultaneously?
yeah. 15. And that is completely ridiculous because normally with one breach of the fence, the whole army is triggered and things start moving immediately. Things start moving immediately. And here there was nothing for hours.
Guys, what do you think about this video again? Do you believe that the Israeli side was aware that the Hamas is preparing for such an attack and they allowed them to do it so that they prepare the public opinion for the carnage that they are doing right now in the Gaza Strip? Or do you think that Hamas was coordinating with the Israeli side? Was there this conspiracy, or Hamas just acted independently and the Israelis were shocked and surprised by this attack? Let me know your opinions in the comment, guys, because today I was reading a very short post on Facebook for the editor-in-chief of the Syrian Al-Watan newspaper. Syrian Al-Watan newspaper is a private newspaper, but the owner is very close, let's say, to the inner circle in the Syrian government. And he posted just a very short post on Facebook saying, remember what happened after 9/11. That's it. And what I take from that is that if he has close ties to the government and to the ruling elite in Syria, and he's saying, remember what happened after 9/11, he's probably referring to the aftermath of the 9/11, which is the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq. So what I understand also from this post, that there is probably an understanding in Damascus that this was allowed to happen, or probably there is a conspiracy so that they drag other players into this conflict, such as Hezbollah, Iran, and Syria. And accordingly, the Americans and the Brits, they have now airplane carriers in the Mediterranean. Israelis are threatening to bomb their neighbors with nuclear weapons, and even if they are not directly threatening it, they have nuclear weapons. So what could be the result of this war if regional countries intervene? What if this is a trap for these regional powers to intervene, right? Or regional players? This is still one of the possibilities and scenarios that could happen. Today, Hezbollah, for example, they fired some mortars and shelled some of the positions of the Israeli occupation forces in the Lebanese Shebaa farms, which is occupied by Israel. But the Israelis aren't responding in a very harsh way to allow the Hezbollah side to intervene. But at the same time, also, the Hezbollah isn't really intervening in a strong way so that there could be a regional war, right? It seems that Hezbollah side is also showing a restraint here, and also the Syrian side is showing restraint. So let's see what's going to happen now after the ground offensive. If after the ground offensive, Hezbollah intervenes, it's regional war. This is my interpretation. I hope I'm wrong, but I think if Hezbollah intervenes, there is definitely going to be regional war. And the Americans will intervene. And then the Iranians and the Syrians will be forced to intervene. This is my opinion. But the Israelis are, before they wage this ground offensive, they're telling the Palestinians to leave northern Gaza to the south. I mean, Gaza Strip is already very small, right? And they're asking the people to leave from the north to the south because they want to invade the north. But while they are leaving with their cars and with trucks, I've seen these photos and videos, guys. It's very bloody. It's very graphic. I'm not going to show you, of course. But while there was a truck, for example, I saw the video while there were like 70 to 100 people were on a truck. This truck is a transportation truck that you transport vegetables and stuff, and they were all packed in this truck. And while they were going to the south, driving to the south, Israel bombed them, and at least 70 people died. And even the MSNBC, they couldn't hide this truth. 70 Palestinians killed after Israeli strikes hit 3 convoys of evacuees trying to leave northern Gaza. They don't even say Palestinians. See, 70 killed. Like, this is just becoming so ridiculous, man. They don't even mention the victims.
NBC News can now report 3 convoys of what appear to be evacuees were just hit by Israeli strikes in Gaza. That's according to the Palestinian Health Ministry and also some of our own interviews. 70 people are dead. Only an hour. IDF said an extensive attack against military targets within Gaza was underway. This morning, Israel dropped thousands of leaflets in the north of the Strip warning civilians to go south. Quote, Gaza City has turned into a battlefield. Leave your homes immediately, read those flyers. The IDF told Gaza City residents they would refrain from touching an evacuation route until 8 p.m. That was just about 2 hours ago. Quote, no one knows where we're going, one Gaza resident told NBC News, but we're ready to run. NBC News can.
Yeah, and then while they were running for their lives to the south, what happens? They bomb them. I mean, this is just this is so disgusting, man. Scores of people, mainly women and children, have been killed in multiple Israeli airstrikes on the main road connecting North and South Gaza as Palestinians carried out an Israeli order to flee their homes. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, at least 70 people have been killed in 3 separate airstrikes on the road, with the latest killing at least 40. The Israeli army said in a statement on Friday that civilians must leave Gaza City in the north and that they would not be allowed to return until we say so and until a statement is issued allowing this. They will never allow them to come back. You know that, right? However, locals have reported a number of attacks on the Salah ad-Din road since then. Survivors speaking to the local media implored others not to make the journey for fear of being targeted by the Israelis. Don't leave, says one of the survivors here. Like, I want to ask you something here, guys. Like, the Israeli side asked the Palestinians to leave from the north to the south, right? So the goal is to drive them closer and closer to the Rafah border crossing and to force them to go to Egypt, etc. Why did they bomb them? Like, this is a serious question. Please let me know. Like, you ask them to leave, so your goal is to drive them out of the Gaza Strip to Egypt. Why do you bomb them? Like, there is no military value or importance behind it. What's the purpose of just sadically murdering these people, like 70 people being murdered? And I've seen the photos and the videos in the aftermath of the bombing. Guys, it makes me I'm becoming sick. Literally, like I wake up in the morning, I have headache, I continue the entire day, I'm like, just these pictures are circulating in front of my eyes, and this also affects on my health because I grew up since I was a kid on the pictures of the Second Intifada and the Palestinian struggle against the occupation, and in Syria this is very important issue for us, right? And I can see in front of my eyes that they are trying to finish the Palestinian cause once for all. This is the final solution of the Israelis. Completely ethnically cleanse the Palestinians and force them out of their lands. This is their plan. And the Israelis aren't only targeting just, let's say, the people who are trying to flee their homes from the north to the south of Gaza. This is on the borders with between in Lebanon, in southern Lebanon, and there were journalists covering this, right, from Al Jazeera, from Reuters, from BBC, from many. And then Israeli forces from the other side of the fence, they fire rockets or a few rockets, and they murder one Lebanese journalist whom I know on social media platforms. I haven't met him personally, but I know him because of his work. He's a videographer and video journalist. He has been working for the Reuters for at least 1 decade now. And they murdered him in southern Lebanon. And at first, I will show you this video very quickly. This is from Reuters while the videographer is covering it, right? And then the rocket comes. Guys, what is this? Seriously, this is beyond anything. Like, what's happening? What are they doing? And the journalist, one of the Al Jazeera journalists, she's also a friend of mine. Her name is Carmen Shohadar. She's also injured, but thankfully she's fine. And the other journalist, he died. They murdered him. And Reuters, imagine, guys, this is the Reuters press team. And this guy worked for Reuters for 10 years. Look, Reuters do not even dare to mention that their own journalist was murdered by Israel. They say, we are deeply saddened to learn that our videographer Hassam Abdullah has been killed. Hassam was part of a Reuters crew in southern Lebanon who was providing a live signal. We are urgently seeking more information, working with authorities in the region and supporting Hassam's family and colleagues. Reuters journalists Saer al-Sudani and Maher Nazeh also sustained injuries and are seeking medical care. Our thoughts are with their families at this table. They don't even mention who killed them, who killed their own journalist. How much shameful, like, and thankfully there is these notes now. Hassam was killed by an Israeli artillery strike near the Israeli-Lebanon border. They don't even mention it. Look, like, people are just in the comments. Everybody is bashing them. Everybody is bashing them. Like, look, this, like, this is too much, man. This is too much. This is too much. If I would like to give now any advice to any journalist working for mainstream media outlets, don't work for them, man. Don't work for them. Imagine, even in your death, while you are murdered, while you are working for the agency that you served for 10 years, they don't even dare to mention the perpetrator. Don't work for them, man. Oh, this is another memo coming from, this is a secret memo, by the way, being circulated by the State Department to their diplomats. And they're urging all their diplomats and that they shouldn't mention Gaza de-escalation in their any statements. As Israel escalates its attacks on Gaza, the State Department is discouraging diplomats working on Middle East issues from making public statements suggesting the US wants to see less violence, according to internal emails viewed by Huffington Post. In messages circulated on Friday, State Department staff wrote that high-level officials do not want press materials to include 3 specific phrases: de-escalation, ceasefire, end to violence, bloodshed, and restoring calm. The revelation provides a stunning signal about the Biden administration's reluctance to push for Israel's restraint as the close US partner expands the offensive it launched after Hamas, which rules Gaza, attacked Israel communities on October the 8th. And I'm not surprised at all, by the way, by these memos, and I think it shows it's very loudly. We can see all the statements coming from the officials. Thank you, Ruth, for the compliment. Love your work, Thank you, guys. And there is this prick, right? Like I made a video about him the other day. Now he's threatening the neighboring countries with nuclear war. And why is he saying that? If you remember, guys, as I told you at the beginning of the show, we are in front of two scenarios now. The first scenario is that Israel successfully manages to expel all the Palestinians, either kill them or expel them from the Gaza Strip to Egypt, or we are faced with regional war. So now this Ben Shapiro, he comes and he says that the United States must provide Israel with material support, or Israel will be forced to use its nuclear weapons because the regional powers will intervene, such as Hezbollah. So I don't know if Ben is sending like messages from the Netanyahu side because he's a close friend of also Netanyahu. Is he also working as his propaganda, let's say, warrior on his channel? And ironically, his videos are all monetized and they're not taken down, unlike our videos, guys. All the streams that I did in the past 4 or 5 days, they've all demonetized. Look how he speaks about nuclear war here.
So the real risk for Israel in not finishing off Hamas right now is that this is taken as a sign of weakness, as it certainly would be, by Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a far more dangerous terrorist group than Hamas. Hamas is a dangerous terrorist group. They just proved it by killing 1,300 Jews. Hezbollah currently has over 100,000 highly sophisticated rockets aimed directly at the north of Israel. Estimates suggest that were Hezbollah to fire all of those rockets, we wouldn't be talking about 1,300 dead Jews. You would be talking about somewhere between 20 and 30,000 dead Jews, day one. If Hezbollah gets in, Israel will have no choice but to unleash the Air Force. If they unleash the Air Force, they're not going to be worried at that point about civilian casualties at all. They're simply going to have to eviscerate the entire south of Lebanon and topple the regime in Lebanon that supports Hezbollah. If that happens, Iran undoubtedly gets in, and so does Syria. If that happens, and Israel is now faced with a full war in the north, combined with a war in the south, because they will not have defeated Hamas, that's the predicate. If Israel is forced to the wall, the possibility of nuclear exchange is extremely high. That is why it is very important that the United States provide the material aid to Israel.
Do you guys think this guy is just a prick talking like some crap on his channel, or these messages are being sent to him to say it loud what the Israeli side is not saying yet? I think, judging from his relationship with Netanyahu and hosting him and how he highly thinks of him, and with his close connections to the deep state in Israel, I think there are people sending him messages to speak about these cases on his show. I don't think that he's just bluffing or just speaking his mind. But I will also mention something. This also shows the weakness of Israel, right? What he says here shows the weakness of Israel, because in my opinion, before the 2006 war in Lebanon, where Hezbollah defeated the Israelis and forced them to leave Lebanon, Israel was feared, right? The Israeli army was feared, and everybody used to fear Israel, and fear them by the conventional army of Israel, not the nuclear weapons. I mean, everybody knew that Israel can crush the armies in the surrounding countries, but in 2006 they were defeated. And starting 2006, it becomes clear that Hezbollah has grown probably 10 times more power. They're now more powerful, probably 10 folds than they used to be in 2006. They have now air defense systems. They have anti-tank rockets. They have precision missiles. They have all sorts of missiles that they can completely neutralize all the military bases, airports, and also the ports of Israel. So that's why, for the first time, I see that the Israelis and their supporters, they're asking for direct help from the United States, like the aircraft carriers of the United States and the Britain are in the Mediterranean. This is unprecedented. And secondly, they're threatening to use nuclear weapons because apparently they cannot match the power of the regional powers if there is a regional war. This is unprecedented, in my opinion. But today's episode is about the former deputy foreign minister of Israel was a guest on Al Jazeera, and I will show you just 2 clips of his interview, because one, in the first video, he acknowledges, without acknowledging, that the Israeli side is actually practicing collective punishment against the Palestinians. And in the second one, he confesses what's the end goal of the Israelis. Let's take a look for the first one.
He said that the humanitarian situation, quote, will only deteriorate exponentially, and that crucial life-saving supplies, including fuel, food, and water, must be allowed into Gaza. So the UN is saying you must do this. You are saying you're not going to do this. How do you?
No, we're not saying that.
He's saying do it. He's saying doing it immediately. What I'm saying is what you're doing.
No.
He's saying doing it immediately.
I got you. I'll tell you exactly what we're saying. I'm saying we will do everything for the Gazan people. Once and now we demand immediate surrender, unconditional surrender of Hamas. If Hamas people come out with their hands up and clear their weapons, believe me, everything will be restored to Gaza. It is Hamas in Hamas hands.
Now I understand. Thank you for clarifying that, sir. I think we're actually on the same page here. You're saying that once Hamas leaves, you'll grant the Gazan people food, shelter, fuel, electricity, hospitals, schooling. And if they don't, and if Hamas doesn't leave, then they'll continue to starve and die in hospitals. You are defining for the international community right now collective punishment. You're saying until Hamas acts differently, the 2 million people in Gaza are going to be treated this way. And once Hamas acts differently, these 2 million people in Gaza will be treated better. That is exactly what collective punishment is. You're holding them accountable for the actions of others. That is the definition, the textbook definition of collective punishment, sir. Now, you may accept that that's what you want to do, but this is absolutely a contravention of international law.
Well, I'll tell you exactly. No, had we pushed them to the wall, we're not pushing them to the wall. We want to open a humanitarian corridor so they can leave. But if Hamas,
so that who can leave? Citizens? You're saying civilians can leave, but only through the Rafah border, correct?
At this point, yes.
So they can't
come. Where else?
Your country. They can come into Israel.
I'm telling you one more thing I want to say.
I want you to address that point. Don't just smile, sir, respectfully. You're saying you're making a corridor. They can go to Egypt. You're bombing them. You say you want to save them, but they can't come in.
First of all, I'm not smiling. I'm crying in my heart.
Yeah, he's crying deep in his heart. Like, he literally, look at the hypocrisy here. First, he defined the collective punishment. He fell in the trap, right? The journalist was very smart here. He walked him to the trap, and he walked there, and he fell in the trap. He literally said that they're going to collectively punish the Palestinians because of the actions of Hamas. He agreed on that. And secondly, he pretended that he cares about the civilians in the Gaza Strip. And when the journalists asked him, then take the Palestinians on your side while you're forcing them to go to the southern part of Gaza, so they go all to Egypt. Why don't you take them, right? If you want to save them, take them, because the northern part of the Gaza Strip is closer to the Israeli side. Why are you sending them to the south? And he smiles there. And then he pretends like, no, there is a pain in my chest. I'm so sad and all these things. These people are psychopaths, man. These people are psychopaths, and as I told you, the end goal is ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians from the Gaza Strip, and he says that in this clip. So, ex-Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister and currently senior diplomat Danny Ayalon, he says, quote, "We don't tell Gazans to go to the beaches or drown themselves. No, God forbid. Go to the Sinai Desert. The international community will build them cities and give them food. Egypt ought to play ball with it." Like I said, it is clear that the Israeli plan is to force 2 million Palestinians from Gaza to the deserts of Sinai and make it their new home. These Palestinians will grow up in agony and want to regain what belongs to them in a decade or two. And when the Palestinians fire a bullet in the direction of Gaza from Sinai, Israel will say again, I have to protect myself, and expand inside Egyptian territories. Israel occupied Sinai once in 1967 and will not hesitate to occupy it again. Guys, I don't think this is a conspiracy theory. Just imagine 2 million people, you push them to the deserts of the Sinai on the borders with the Gaza Strip, and then these people want to come back to their home countries. They want to use violence and use arms against the Israeli occupation forces of their homes and towns and farms. And once a bullet comes from the Sinai side, then Israel says, oh, I have to expand now in the Sinai so that I protect my security. So according to this logic, the Israelis are going to indefinitely expand in the region. And some of the Arabic people say, or the Arab people say, that the flag of Israel, they have these two blue lines, right? They say this is the dream of the Israelis to occupy the Arabic lands between the Euphrates River in Syria to the Nile River in Egypt. So if they are eyeing on the Sinai and eyeing to expand till the Nile, then they're also eyeing to expand in Syria in the future. I don't think that's people can rule out that possibility, because according to the logic of the Israelis, if they have to expand every time their territories are threatened because of their illegal occupation of other countries, then they will expand indefinitely. So here, he literally says that's the plan, to send them to the Sinai and let's build them their new cities.
Netanyahu told everyone to leave the area. Where were they to go?
Okay, very, I mean, this is thought out. It's not something that we tell them, go to the beaches, go drown yourselves, God forbid. Not at all. There is a huge expense, almost endless space in the Sinai desert, just on the other side of Gaza. The idea is, and this is not the first time it will be done, the idea is for them to leave over to the open areas where we and the international community will prepare the infrastructure, tent cities with food and with water. You know what? Just like for the refugees of Syria that fled the butchering of Assad a few years ago to Turkey. Turkey received 2 million of them. This is the idea. Again, I say there is a way to receive them all on the other side for temporary time on Sinai. Because what did Hamas turn out
on the other
Gaza?
side? Are we
Gaza,
talking about Rafah? Are you saying the other side that go to Egypt?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And Egypt will have to play ball because this is human life is at stake. Well, we want to open a humanitarian corridor so they can leave. But if Hamas...
So that who can leave? So that who can leave? Citizens? You're saying civilians can leave, but only through the Rafah border, correct?
At this point, yes.
So they can't
because
come...
where else?
Your country! They can come into Israel!
I'm telling you one more thing I want to say.
I want you to address that point. Don't just smile, sir, respectfully. You're saying you're making a corridor. They can go to Egypt. You're bombing them. You say you want to save them, but they can't come in.
First of all, I'm not smiling. I'm crying in my heart. I'm crying in my heart for...
Yeah, he's crying in his heart. You know, guys, what's going to happen if they send them to the Sinai? They will never allow them to come back. Just like the 500,000 Palestinian refugees in Syria and 500,000 Palestinian refugees in Lebanon. And I don't know what's the number of the Palestinian refugees in Jordan. I think it's also similar, Palestinian refugees in Jordan. So in Jordan, we have 2 million Palestinian refugees. In Syria, we have 500,000, and in Lebanon, 500,000. So 3 million Palestinian refugees in the neighboring countries, and those were never allowed to go back to their hometowns and to their cities. It's going to be the same. If they go to the Sinai, they will never be allowed to come back to their home, to Gaza Strip again, ever. And I despise these people like Danny Ayalon, but I like Jewish people like YouTuber Ethan Klein. I respect him. I salute him. I give him a chapeau for speaking the truth about this matter. And he breaks down in tears as he's talking about some of the videos he has seen out of Gaza.
It's unacceptable. It's disgusting. I've seen videos, I saw videos of Palestinian dads holding his dead, like 5-year-old daughter. I mean, and there was another one that, like, as a father, it's even hard to talk about. This dude was holding his infant. It was like a year old. And he was like patting her on the back and saying like his final goodbye. I mean, he's holding her like she's alive, like he's just burping her or something. I didn't expect to get emotional about that, but like I'm a new dad and that shit really fucks me up. And I hate to see it. It's not right. I think people in Israel that support the government and the government need to watch that shit. I think Israel shutting off water, power, and food to Gaza is insane. It doesn't even make sense. Like, what's the end goal there exactly?
Yeah, what's the end goal? The end goal is the expulsion of the Palestinians, as I mentioned, to the Sinai. And I've been saying this from day one because I was able to read the signals coming from the Israeli side, unfortunately. And let's see what's going to happen. In your opinion, guys, what's going to happen? Do you think the ground offensive will go on without any repercussions or consequences from the neighboring countries? Do you think the neighboring countries or the powers will intervene, or the Israelis will successfully force the Palestinians to go to the Sinai? So which scenario is, in your opinion, is more plausible? Let me know your opinions, guys, in the comments below. Thank you very much for tuning in. I know it's sad days that we're living in. I would just encourage you to speak up. I will encourage you to not to be silent. In Arabic, we say the silent person for injustice is it's like a demon, you know. You shouldn't be silent for injustice at all. And this is one of the reasons why I created this channel, because I've seen so much injustice in my country and in the region, in the Middle East in general. And if you don't know me, guys, I come from Syria, from Aleppo. I'm Christian, I'm ethnic Armenian. I was born there, and we have seen lots of injustice and lots of killing because of the American policy in the region. And most of the Christians have been expelled from Iraq and Syria due to these American wars, unfortunately. So raise up your voice, speak up against evil. And we are the majority, actually, and we always have to push back against this evil. I've been your host, Almassian of Syriana Analysis. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in and for supporting my show. And if you want to support my work financially, there is this link you can see in the bar. You can become a patron so that you can support independent journalists like myself, so that I can dedicate hours per day to have the privilege to spend hours per day researching and preparing a live stream like this for you. See you next time.